Okay, guys, so welcome again here. This is our third session that you already know. ADA part, we will be discussing more on two teams will be presenting today. First is Tarun and Prince, and second team, I believe it is Vikrama and Gaurav. So, why don't you, Tarun, go ahead and share your screen and then you can start with the presentations. All right. In the meantime, every people, you should take out your pen and paper and do take a lot of notes. I'll be also sharing a couple of key nuggets during the conversation itself, and feel free to make a lot of notes there. Okay, Prince, yes, it is visible. All right. So feel free to,
Is it visible?
yes, it is visible. Make it to a slideshow mode.
Okay, hello everyone. Good evening. This is Tarun. Me and Prince introducing the data types in statics. So, can we have first slide, please, Prince? So, on moving to the data types, first point is what is data science? Okay, so we need to learn about the data. Data is nothing but information of something. It may be in any form. It may be a numeric value or something in pictures or video tutorials, anything. Okay. And what is science? Science, nothing. As we all are from science stream, so we know that we have created some assumption, hypothesis, and we find some pick point. If it get true, then we will work on particular topic and find out some results or solution of a given problem. So data science is nothing but to experiment with the raw data and find some good insight from the data. It may be some pattern or some useful results also. Okay, let's please second. Okay. So data science provide insights about what I'm talking about an organization or in a product which is currently working, but I have to analyze the particular flow line or in maybe a strategy or plan which is ongoing in a company. Okay, but I have to improve that or I have to just judge what is going on. So the data science or analysis purpose will give me an idea about that. Okay. Second thing, I need to launch a new product into the market, so I easily organize by the that by that. I have an example of Geo 4G, as Geo provide free data for an year, and they collected all the information a person at what time at in in what time and which manner they are using their data. So they launch their prepaid plans according to that. Okay. If it required, they by the data science we can perform different types of experiment to find some other results if required. Okay, move to the next slide. Okay, learn why we learn about the data types. Okay, we are generating lots of data in a day, not in a month, in a day or in an hour. So we have to store the data, to implement the data, to manipulate the data, but we have to store the data or implement the data in a very efficient way without an error, because it is, if error does this will be create a worse condition also. Okay, so uh, we have to arrange the data, so we have to learn about the data types. We need to know about the data types to apply the statistical measurement, and so we can correctly conclude the assumption as we already assume at the start to do experiment. Okay, also certain statistical measurement can be used only for a specific data type. So this and another reason to learn about the data types, which visualization method fit for a particular data. We have to, so we have to first learn about the data types. It may be we can be use box method, tree method, tree pattern, or heat maps, which visualization method we want to according to the data type. Okay, so data type. Before going to that, I want to explain about the EDA. What is EDA? EDA in general data science project, it becomes it is a general data in a general data project, it become crucial to know good understanding of the different type of data types. Since we have certain statistical measurement, so we have to apply just for an specific data. Here EDA is one of the most important component in pipeline of machine learning project, as EDA refers to the extrapolatory data analysis. It is a critical process performing the initial investigation of data to discover the patterns, or to test the hypotheses, to take our assumptions by the use of statics or graphical representation. So move to the data type. Data type, mostly it is divided into two parts: quantitative data type, qualitative data type. Qualitative data type further divided in two parts: nominal and ordinal. Please, can I have next slide, please? Qualitative data. Qualitative data mainly consists of words, picture, and symbols, but not the numbers. Numbers are not covered in qualitative data. It is also known as categorical data, because we are going to divide into a category of the variables. As some example I have shown, the colors of our hair, it may be black, red, and white. It will be fruit juice, gender, male, female, uh, holiday destination, Simla, Manali, and all that. So here values are more important, not the numbers. So we are not going to implement the arithmetics with that, but we can found the mode of the particular data. Earlier I will explain this, please. So qualitative data further divided into two parts: nominal data type and ordinal data type. Nominal data type. Nominal data type, here nominal words come from Latin word from nomens, which means name. We are going to just label the variables as gender. Variables are male and female. Okay. Color, black, blue, orange, anything. But here in nominal data type, one thing is most important, that there is no order or rank or preference. We have just put male, female, or female, male in a gender option. Okay. If we are asking to someone which type, which language do you speak, we have four options. Okay. The sequence or order doesn't matter in this particular pattern. I have shown an example of election. Okay, election results. So most of people elected to the Democratic Party. So he won. So mode of the data is Democratic Party, but we cannot do arithmetic, or we cannot find the mean or data of this particular data type. Okay, so we can find the mode, but we cannot find the mean of the data. Second type of qualitative data is ordinal data. Here, the basic difference in between the nominal and ordinal data is that there will be an rank or order and superiority in a particular scale or in a particular manner. So ordinal data indicates the superiority in any method, in any way, in any scale, we can say. But in ordinal data also, we cannot do arithmetic operation as well, because ordinal data only shows the sequence, not the numbers. We can assign some numbers to the data as per their relative position: first rank, second rank, third rank, in order that in this point I have make the rank. In between the rank, the difference doesn't matter, means that the value in between the rank, as I've taken example of race, where me and Prince and Saurabh, you, okay, we are racing to each other, taking part in this competition. You make first, Prince second, and I'll third. Okay, but the difference in between you and Prince is 200 meter, and between Prince and me, the difference is only 50 meter. But the difference doesn't matter. You are the first one, second, Prince is the second one, and I'm third. That's why that shows the ordinal data only. Okay. Here, I have provided two examples where a feedback system, feedback of customers for an organization is provided on the basis of room, staff, value, and facilities. Okay, so there are five levels of satisfaction level, which shows the satisfaction level of a particular customer for an organization. For these four different type of APSICAs. Okay, very despite this is sorry, very dissatisfied, okay, satisfied, and very satisfied. Here we shows the level of satisfaction. In the on the other end, I have shown another example of ordinal data where we are arranging according the hotness level of chili. So it shows the superiority level of ordinal data. Okay, thank you. That's all from my side. Prince.
Prince, I believe you are on mute. Please start from the very beginning itself. Yeah. Yes, yes, you are audible. Can you put your earphone a little closer to yourself?
Actually, right now I'm audible.
Yes, yes, you are audible, but
Little bit.
yeah, there's a delay in your voice. Yeah, please continue. No problems, no issues.
Okay, so from here onwards, I will tell some insights about what is quantitative data. Okay, so as the name itself suggests, here we give some number to the data, which is useful, and we can use arithmetic operations on that number. And basically, in quantitative data, we basically try to find out answers of three questions: how many, how much, and how often. And it itself tells that it can be quantified easily. And if it can quantify, then we can represent it using line charts, bar graph, and scatter plots, etc. So the basic examples in which we see around in our day-to-day life of quantitative data is test score of students in a particular test and weight of a person, and etc. Many examples are there in your day-to-day life of quantitative data. And basically, there are two types of quantitative data. First one is discrete one, and second one is continuous data. And now I will discuss about discrete data first. So by discrete data, I mean to say that the discrete data, do you mean that it count that involves only integer and can't be subdivided into further sub levels? For example, if there are certain number of students in class, like there can be only 25 students or 27 or 28 students, there can't be 28.5 students in a class. It doesn't make any sense. So basically, discrete data variables can't be subdivided into smaller parts. And certain categories have some limit number of possible values, like number of days in a month. So then the examples of discrete data are number of students in a class, number of workers in a company, number of teachers in a school, number of workers in a company, and etc. Basically, it has some integral value associated with it only. And with the use of integral value, we can perform arithmetic operation and find the mean, median, mode, and range of the data easily. And here I represented bar charts of a discrete data. Here, in the bar chart, it shows the number of CDs bought by group of children in a given month. So it clearly represents what are the number of students which bought the number of CDs in which particular month. And through this bar graph, we can easily take some insights about the selling of CDs in that particular month and how we should plan these things. Then we come to continuous data. So basically, the continuous data is basically a next version of discrete data, information which can be meaningfully divided into finite levels. Basically, it has also some number, but the thing which makes it different from discrete data is like it can occur in fractional values also. So it can be measured on a scale and can have almost any numerical value. Okay, it can be positive, negative, or any value, and in fraction also, in points also. For example, we can measure our height very precisely using scales such as meter, centimeter, inches, even millimeters. So only the precision level will increase as much as we go increase the width of our scales. And the difference between continuous and discrete data types is that we can record continuous data at so many different scales, such as length, temperature, etc., etc. Example of continuous data: time required for any task. It can be 5 hours or 5.5 hours or any fraction data. Height of a person. It can vary for a range of persons. It can vary from 5 foot to 5.5 foot or maybe 7 foot or 6 foot, 6.2 foot. And then speed of a car. Speed of car can also vary. It has certain range from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. So it can take any value between those, and there are millions of possible values which can occur in between those numbers. So here I have shown a bar chart for continuous data in which on x-axis we have height in centimeters, and on y-axis we have shown the number of people which possesses the corresponding height. So from this bar graph we can find the insight that most of the people having height was between 150 to 160 centimeter. The least number of people which were having the height were of 170 to 180 centimeter or above 170 centimeter. And total number of people which were included in the survey were 55. Now we come to the continuous data is further subdivided into two types: interval data type and ratio data type. By the mean of interval data type and ratio data type, the data is same, but our understanding of data becomes different totally. For example, if I give you information like there are two people A and B, and income of A is $21 per hour, and income of B is $30 per hour, then you will say that B's income is $9 more than A in comparison B. You can't be telling that B's income is 30 by 21 times that of A. And if I give you another example, like A's income is $20 per hour and B's income is $100 per hour, then you will suddenly say that, oh, B income is 5 times than that of A. So basically what you are doing is interval data, we are taking the differences between them. And then ratio data, we are taking the division between them in terms of increment, percentage basically. So for interval data type, measurable and ordered with nearest items and having no meaningful zero. By the word no meaningful zero, we can mean that it doesn't have any absolute zero value. Basically, it can take any negative, it can have negative value also, and it can take positive value also, and we can fix our zero at any arbitrary position. And then we can, with the help of interval data, we can easily correlate the degrees of data and also add or subtract the values easily. And there are some descriptive statistics that we can calculate for interval data, such as central measure of tendency, which we have used earlier in our statistics classes, like mean. We can calculate the mean, median, and mode. We can find the range where the values vary between, and we can find the spread, how much spreaded the data is in terms of percentile, interquartile, range, and standard deviation. Some examples are temperature, like temperature for degree Celsius scale or degree of Fahrenheit scale, but not for Kelvin scale. Because for Kelvin, it has absolute zero, and Kelvin scale doesn't have negative value, so it comes under ratio data scale. And then dates like by the means of year, we can fix our zero to any year, na? And it has two directions, from right or left. Then time gap on 12-hour clock, 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. It comes under interval data types. Now we come to ratio data type. As I told you that data is same, but our treatment becomes different to this type of data. They are also in order units, and that has same difference. Ratio values are the same as integral values, but only difference is that ratio data do have an absolute zero, which means that it can't have any negative value. For example, height of a person, weight of a person, it can't be less than zero. Similarly, in the next point, it's written that never be negative like interval data. Same here as the descriptive statistics, which we can calculate for the ratio data, are same as that of interval data, such as central measure of tendency, mean, median, mode. We can calculate the range also, spread, percentile, interquartile, and standard deviation. Then examples are age between 0 to 100 years, it can vary but can't have negative value. Temperature in Kelvin scale, it can't have negative value, but not in degree Celsius, degree Fahrenheit, because it comes under interval data scale. Then time duration measured using stopwatch. Using stopwatch, if you measure the time, then it will move on in one direction. It can be like moving in other two directions, so in one opposite direction. Then here the table which depicts the interval scale and ratio scale differentiate between them. and follow certain features. The features are variable property, absolute point zero calculation, measurement example. So the variable property, all variables measured in interval scale can be added, subtracted, multiplied, but you can't calculate a ratio between them. So it's the hidden part in the interval data scale which is not presented in interval scale. But in ratio scale, we can also add the data, subtract data, but in additive to that one of integral scale, we can also calculate the ratio that you can leverage numbers on the scale against zero because we have only positive values here. Then absolute point zero in interval scale, we don't have any absolute zero on these. Data can have positive values also, negative values. So, but in ratio scale, we have an absolute point, which means the data value can't be less than zero or negative. It has to be positive value. Then calculation statistically in an interval scale, the arithmetic mean is calculated, and for ratio scale, geometric or harmonic mean is calculated. For measurement, interval scale can measure size and magnitude as a multiple factors of a defined unit. And for ratio scale, can be measure size and magnitude as a factor of one defined unit in terms of other. As I told you, the income of B is 5 times than that of A. So A's income is defined already, and B's income is 5 times than that of A. And if we come to the example of the classical example of an interval scale is that temperature in Celsius. So here the difference between 50 degrees and 60 degrees is also 10 degrees, and that is the same difference between 70 degree and 80 degree also. And classical example of ratio scale are variables that possess an absolute zero characteristic like age, weight, height, or sales figure, which can't be negative. It has a positive value only. So the data in interval and ratio scale is same, but our treatment becomes different with the given values so that we can take better decisions easily. So that's it. Thanks a lot.
Wow, thank you, team. It was really very fantastic the way you both presented. I've added a couple of more things that I'll be sharing at the end of it. There were a couple of more things that I would like to add, but before that, let's go ahead with the second team. Yeah, you can unshare your screen, Prince, and then second team, you can please feel free to share.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Perfect.
Okay. So, hello everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Gaurav, and I am currently pursuing Bachelor's in Technology with specialization in Mechanical Engineering from Jagdish Chandra Bose University of Science and Technology, Faridabad, and I am currently living in the Nirvana city, which is in District Jind of State Haryana. Today, I would like to present a topic, the data exploration, today with my friend Mr. Vikrama Raghuraman. And first of all, I would like to explain the definition of the data exploration. So what is the data exploration? And it is considered as the initial step in the data analysis. As the name suggests, the data exploration is nothing but to explore the data to find out the fruitful insights out of it. And what could be these fruitful insights? These fruitful insights could be the initial patterns, characteristics, and the point of interest that we want to find out with, among the data population we have. So from the next slide, I would explain the key steps to the data exploration. The first step to the data exploration is the variable identification. The type of the variables and the data type is already beautifully explained by Mr. Tarun and the Prince. And so I would like to take an example here. Here I have the data of the 5 students along with their gender, previous exam marks, height, weight category, and whether to going to play cricket or not. So I have to categorize all these variables, gender, previous exam marks, height, weight category, and whether to going to play cricket or not in the predictor variable and the target variable. So what is the predictor variable? Predictor variables are those variables which are considered as an input variable to the algorithm that we have made in the in a computer system. and the target variable are those variable which we will get as an output from that particular algorithm. So here the input variables are the gender, previous exam marks, height, and the weight category. And when we put these input variables in our algorithm, we will going to find out whether these students are going to play cricket or not, and how we can differentiate the type of the variables. It is also important to categorize these variables on the basis of the data type, whether they are holding a character value or the numeric value. As we know, a particular data in the computer system occupies a data which is in character or the numeric holds the different values in the computer memory. Like the character holds the 1 byte and the numeric holds the 2 bytes. So it is important to tell the computer that we are holding a character value or the numeric value in a particular variable. It is also important to categorize the variable on the basis of whether it is a categorical type data or the continuous type data, and the importance of this we will see in the further slides. So moving to the next step, to the data exploration, which is the univariate analysis. The key point to the univariate analysis is that in this we will explore the variable one by one, and depending on whether the variable is of categorical or the continuous type, the univariate analysis will be different for the different type of the variables. If I talk about the categorical type, then we will use the frequency table to frequency table will be used to analyze the distribution of the different categories. And if it is a continuous type, we will understand the central tendency and the spread of the variable, and with the help of the various statistical terms like the mean, median, mode, variance, and the standard deviation. The next step to the data exploration is the bivariate analysis. The bivariate analysis. So what is the key difference between the univariate analysis and the bivariate analysis is, in the bivariate analysis, we will find out the relationship between the two variables, and depending on the combination of the different types of the variable, we have the different ways to perform the bivariate analysis. So the first combination that we have is the we have the both the continuous variables. So in the condition, if we have the combination of two continuous variables, we can use the scatter plots, and to find out the strength relationship between these two variables, we can use the correlation coefficient that we have already know from our graduation period, that the correlation coefficient. So the correlation coefficient values lies from -1 to 1, and if its value is 1, then we can say that there is a direct proportionality lies between the both the continuous variables. If its value is -1, that we can say that they are inversely proportionate, and if the values is 0, then we can say that there is no relationship holds between these two continuous variable. There are the different tools which we can directly use to find out the correlation between the variables. In the Excel, we have the function, the correl, which is used to return the correlation between the variables. And if we are using this SAS, then the procedure that we can use to find the correlation is as given in the presentation. The next is so next combination would be the if both the variables are of categorical type, and to find out the relationship between these two categorical variables, we can use the following methods. The first method is the two-way table method. In this two-way table method, it is a way to display the frequencies or the relative frequencies for the two categorical variables. And out of these, one variable will represent the row, and the other one will represent the column, as we can see by this example. The row is represented by the gender of a particular human, and the columns is represented by their interest, whether they are interested in the sports utility vehicle or the sports car. and this is how we can represent the data and can find out the relationship between these two categorical variables. The second method is to use the stacked column chart or the stacked bar chart, which is nothing but very much similar to the two-way method, but it is a visual frame of the two-way table. The bar chart is already explained by the Mr. Prince and the Tarun, and we are going to the next one, that is the chi-square test. And it is particularly used to derive the statistical significance of the relationship between the variables. Consider if the probability comes out to be 0, then it indicates that the categorical variable are dependent. But if the probability comes out to be 1, we can say that the both variables are independent. And let us consider the probability comes out to be 0.05. Then we can say that the relationship between two variables is significant at the 95% confidence. So to find out the chi-square test, the formula for the chi-square test is as given in the presentation, where O represent the observed frequency. So what is the observed frequency? It is the simple frequency of a particular data, and E is the expected frequency under the null hypothesis. So what is the expected frequency, and what is the null hypothesis? The expected frequency is also the observed frequency, but in the condition when we suppose null hypothesis holds. So what is the null hypothesis? Null hypothesis is considering an assumption that the variables that we have, both the categorical types in this, both our variables will be independent in a particular data population. In a small set of the data population, we are considering them as an independent. So this is the null hypothesis, and if the null hypothesis will hold, the observed frequency will be considered as the expected frequency. And to find out this expected frequency, we have the direct formula, that is the row total into the column total, which is divided by the sample size or the frequency of that data. The next combination is if the one variable is of categorical type and other one is the continuous variable. To find out the statistical significance or the significance of the relationship between these two type of the data, we can perform the different types of the test, like the Z test, T test, or the ANOVA test. So what are the Z test and the T test? Z test and T test, both these tests will assess whether mean of the two groups are statistically different from each other or not. But then what is the difference between these two? The difference lies if the number of observation for both the categories is less than 30. In that condition, we will use the T test. And if they are greater than 30, we will use the Z test. So the procedure to both these tests is similar, but they only depend on the number of observation, whether they are less than 30 or more than 30. If the probability of the Z is small, then the difference of the two average will be more significant. So what is the ANOVA method? It is also to assess whether the average of the Z test and the T test. Then the next method is the ANOVA method. So what is the difference between the Z test, T test, and the ANOVA method? The key procedure to all these tests is same. All this test is assessing whether the groups we are having, the mean of the groups we are having are statistically different from each other or not. But in the ANOVA method, we will use the ANOVA method in the case when we have the more than two groups associated with us. So from the next slide, we will discuss about the missing value statement. And till now, we have discussed the three important steps to the data exploration. The first one is the univariate analysis. Second one is the bivariate analysis. And one is the variable identification. So from the next slide, the Mr. Vikrama Raghuraman would explain the missing value statement. So over to you, Mr. Vikrama Raghuraman.
First of all, tell me whether I'm audible or not.
You are perfectly audible, Mr. Vikrama Raghuvan.
Stop presenting, I present it here. Because, I have...
Yes, of course.
Yeah. can I start? Is it completely visible in the full screen?
Yes, it is visible. Please start.
Okay, the follow-up topic of what Gaurav has told is the next topic for a bivariate analysis is missing value treatment, because when we have a missing value in our data, there will be a bias in the prediction and even while fitting the model. So the missing value can be of two types. One thing is undefined, and another one is unrecorded. The undefined technique is undefined values are nothing but infinite value. If a number is infinity, then we can't. The Python will note it as NA, not a number. So another type of missing value is unrecorded. When the people who are surveying or people who is collecting data will miss it either intentionally or by mistake they will miss it. This record goes unrecorded. So these are the two types of missing values. And the first thing is why do we care about missing values? The reason is the missing value will fit the model wrongly. I'll take a scenario where we collect the age groups of different of both genders. So say that age won't be, the females won't reveal the gender blatantly. So there will be a bias in picking up the age from females. So there will be imbalanced data set where the more number of NINs will be on female sites and the records which is pertaining to the male will be completely filled. So I'm not creating any sort of stereotype over women. Just for example, let's take this. So in here, the number of data for males are high, so it creates an imbalanced data set. So when we have an imbalanced data set, the model will incline towards the data which is towards the male, since it has more number of data. So our model will won't predict pretty much fine. So next thing is why data is missing. For this, there are two different reasons for that. One is during the data extraction. For say, if we are using a MySQL database to extract data, so from the relation database, if we extract through the SQL queries, there may be a mistake while querying, and if in case you do any sort of mistake in querying, it won't extract the complete data. So this sort of errors of missing values will come under data extraction. The next topic, which is data collection. During the data collection, there are four different types of errors or missing value, whatever you can say. The first thing is missing completely due to completely due to random. So the example for this is the grayscale that ran out of battery. In this, the missing completely at random is nothing but the data is missing randomly, but there won't be any relationship between the missing value and any of the predictor variables or any other features. Yeah, in the example shown on the right side, the grayscale that ran out of battery, if you are ready to pick up the weight of say 100 people, the first 50 people are good to go. Then after that, if the battery gone out or ran out of battery, then it is not an intentional one, it is a random one, and the probability of any people, be it male or be it female, the probability of missing the measurement of weight is random, is equal. The probability is equal, and the next type is MAR, missing at random. The main difference, even in MAR, the missingness is due to a random reason, but the difference between the MAR and MCAR is that in missing at random, the data will be missing because of the another variable in the same data set. So the example for that is collecting data of age. As I explained before, the females won't reveal their age, so the missing value of age is just because of their gender. So it's related, and it's related. That's it. And next type is missing that depends on unobserved data. Here the example is questioning people coming out of hospital. Say they are questioning about anything else from the people coming out of hospital. So most of the people won't answer that because they will be intimidated actually what's happening in the hospital, and they will be baffled about the things what's going on. So they won't be in the comfort zone to answer all these things. So here the missing data is depends on the unobserved thing. Unobserved thing is while collecting the data, we won't add the column called as discomfort level. So we don't even know why they haven't answered, but the data is missing because of the unobserved data, which is the discomfort level. So the next type is missing that depends on missing value. So best example for this is surveying the graduation and graduation year. So if we compile a data for this, if you go and ask a person, a student who hasn't joined the graduation, if you go and ask him the graduation year, he won't be answering for sure. So the missing data in the graduation column is because of the missing data in the graduation year. It depends because of the another missing data, and that's it. The next thing is how do we handle this missing data? And there are a number of techniques. And the first technique is a list-wise deletion. It's the most orthodox technique, that's what I can say, but it's a worst technique too. The data which is given, data frame which is shown in the presentation, you can see that there is one missing value in age group, and another in the cabin feature we have two missing values. So if you go likewise, if you go with the process of likewise list-wise deletion, what it will do is that it will delete each and every row whichever has missing value. For instance, here all the three rows which has the NaN value, either it has 4 NaNs or 1 NaN, it will delete as such. It won't care of any sort of important information or losing. It won't think about anything. It will cancel out everything. So unless and until we have huge number of data, we have a huge volume of data, we can't go with the list-wise deletion. It's a worst thing to have. And the best example for this is Python drop-NA. So in the drop-NA function just uses the list-wise deletion. And the next thing is pairwise deletion. Here, if we don't wish to delete all the rows with NaN, we can just to preserve, if you have just 100 data and 50 set of data are having NaN, at least one NaN, one missing data. So we don't want to delete all the 50, then we will be left up with just 50. So we can't train a model with 50 data. So what we do is that first we find the correlation between the one feature and the output variable. Here the output variable is survived. This data frame is taken from the Titanic data set. So the 0 means the person who died, and 1 means the passenger survived. So we create a correlation graph between the correlation table between the each and every feature and the output variable. Say, for example, if we take the correlation between the cabin and survival is pretty much low. It's useless feature, so we don't even need that. So we first delete that cabin feature entirely. So after that, we will go with the list-wise deletion. So the age group will be deleted. So as before, in list-wise deletion, we lost 3 of the records. Here we are losing only 1 record, and we are having the good correlated values, that is age and survive or fair and survive. We are having that. So in this method, we can preserve data when we have very less amount of data. And the next thing is imputation. Attributing the missing value to any sort of a mean, median, or mode is one technique. The mode is predominantly used for qualitative data, categorical variable. So mean and median is good to go with continuous variable. Then next technique is a predictive modeling imputation. In predictive modeling imputation, what we do is that we select the any of the two columns, but the the downside is that the both of the feature should be correlated pretty much fine, and so without correlation we can't predict through linear regression. So there must be a correlation between the two, and we leave all the records which has the missing value. So we will go with the training data set which has all the value without any missing value. So we will train the model and we'll predict the missing value, and then we will train to the original model. This is a technique of using say logistic or the linear regression. And the next imputation is KNN, but it's bit useful as a predictive modeling. We can use a technique of K nearest neighbor, and we can use this algorithm. But one thing which, as we all know, KNN is a lazy learner, so it takes time and it needs a huge amount of data to train and to reach the accuracy of say 90% or anything like that. So it's a lazy learner. So we go with any of the sort of imputation which we like. The next thing which you want to look after in EDA exploratory data analysis is outliers for sure. And the outliers are a bit usual, and the outliers the data points that falls outside our normal range. So here the substantially abnormal data points will be classified as outliers first of all. And there is a good saying which I wish to explain you all. Who we are cannot be separated from where we are from. So we are, let's take a scenario where we are pinning down the way of collecting data. When we collect the data with a worst scenario, with a worst methodology, like collecting it with a bias in the mind. So we won't be having any sort of data which is pretty much useful for predictive analysis. So just because from the methodology what we use, the data can be an outlier, can be with mistake, or cannot be can be with good accuracy. So that's it. And first thing, how do we know our data is an outlier or not? It's through a visualization. So for first of all, for a univariate analysis, we go with a box plot, and the box plot is in box plot. We have in the box plot you can see that the data point 15, 1 to 15, the data is an outlier, is mentioned as an outlier because the whisker in the box plot can't extend till the range of the data whatever you have. There is a condition which is predetermined in the definition of a box plot. That means whenever the interquartile range, which is nothing but the difference between the 75th percentile and 25th percentile. So the difference between the difference between 17th percentile and 20th percentile, if it exceeds beyond 1.25 times the range of the value, it will be classified as an outlier. For instance, take 15. 15 is beyond the 1.5 times the value of interquartile range. So it is classified as an outlier. So this is useful for a univariate analysis with one feature. We want to do it individually for other features too. So when we want to do for bivariate analysis, the best way to do is a scatter plot. Say here in the scatter plot, it's good to see visually that outlier is far beyond the normal range of the values which is given below. So it's not good to have that. Even if we fit the line to the data, the predictive line will be the fitted line will be with bias, completely with bias. So what are the causes of it? There are two causes mainly to categorize. The first one is natural cause, and the other one is artificial man-made cause. And next, coming back to the types of data, types of outliers. The first thing is I'll go for a natural thing. The best example I can give for a natural outlier is that if you want to collect a mean average pay of a set of population, say if you are considering a sample of 1,000 people, in that 1,000 people, if the 10 people are like Bill Gates, he's an outlier, but he's an outlier for sure. He'll be having a huge amount of salary, but he can't be taken into consideration while measuring the median pay of middle class. So, but it is an outlier. He's an outlier for sure, but it's a natural outlier. There is no bias in that. It's not a man-made. It's a truth that he's earning a lot. That's it. It's a natural outlier. And next methodology, next outlier is data entry error due to data entry error. And the data entry error is nothing but when you enter for say take a example of in cricket, if a data analyst is noting down the scores of Virat Kohli. Say Virat Kohli, he has not scored a century after 2019 as per stats I know, and he has not scored a century. But if he got out for a 10 and the analyst who record it as a 100, then it's an outlier, it's an error, man-made error, it's an artificial error. So next cause is measurement error. And measurement error is the error is because of the measuring device. We don't need any sort of example to explain that. And next thing is experimental type. And in this type the outlier is because of the how we record data. For instance, I will give a best example here, and let's take a political prediction, election prediction. So in the West Bengal election, if we take if we frame an experiment of measuring collecting data from the North West Bengal alone. The North West Bengal is a bastion of Modi, so you can't represent the data just because it collected from the North West Bengal alone to the entire data. So the entire population can't be. It won't be fair enough to do that. So here it's not a sampling. It won't come under sampling error. It will come under the experimental error because the way of framing the rules to collect the data is it's itself a wrong decision. You can't go and take only for the North West Bengal. We have to take as a representation of entire population. So next type is intentional, that we intentionally lie to people. Say if you want to, if some guy is coming and surveying us how much amount of alcohol you drink a day, we won't be going to give him a true result. So it is intentional. We know that it's wrong, but we do it. So, and next type is data processing error. It's a process. It's during the data mining. It's the same example as if we collect the data from SQL, there may be some error. It's also artificial error, man-made. It's because of our own error. And next error is sampling error. It's a good example given in that article itself. So adding more number of basketball players, if you want to measure mean or median mean height of athletes, So having if your sample size is 100, if we add 50 of the basketball player, and the mean height will be inclined towards the height of the basketball player. So it's an error, it's an outlier. So next thing is impact of outliers, what it does to the data and prediction. And first thing is without outlier, we can see that the data is pretty much good. If you fit a line, it will give a better result. If the bias is less, even in the testing data, the variance will be low. And if you go with outlier, there's a two more data which is unfortunately an outlier for sure. And if you fit a line here, and it will be like this actually. So that it's creating a bias. It is inclining towards the outlier, which is not at all needed for our consideration. So this is what happens if the outliers go unnoticed. If we don't take care of our outliers, the fit line will give a wrong result. And another thing is that there will be increase in bias for sure. As you can see that even for normal data set, which is given below, and the bias is high. And next is that there are several other assumptions in linear regression. So the assumption is say normality and homoscedasticity and no multicollinearity. And one of this is homoscedasticity. It fails literally because it says that the error, the variance of the all through the x-axis or all through the data set is same for entire data, but it's not the case. The variance is pretty much deviant, pretty much increasing as the x value increases in the with outlier. So another example is that if we take a set of 10 people and we measure a mean of anything, say number of chocolates they ate or anything like that, there will be a mean of 5 and 5, median of 5 and standard deviation, we measure it. In case if we have an outlier, so the mean will be pretty much high because the mean is nothing but we are just adding it and dividing with number of people who are involved in that data collecting. So the mean will be affected, but median won't be affected because it's just because if you have 100 data and you have only one outlier at the end, it won't be affected. Median is just a middle number, so it's good to go with median in case you have outliers. So the standard deviation it depends on the mean. It's a deviation from the mean, so square deviation from the mean. It depends on the mean, so it also vary from the without outlier, and with outlier. So one of the best example is that best real life scenario is that no college will represent a mean CTC while giving a brochure. The mean it will always provide us with a median CTC. Say here the 12 LPA, which I have taken from the IME brochure for information. So here we use the median CTC because there will be one guy in every IIT who will get placed for 80 LPA. So he's an outlier. He can't represent the entire population of IITK. So we go for, we don't take with a median LPA, we go for median CTC. That's it. And next thing is how to handle. We have discussed about the outliers and what's type. And next thing is how to handle it. It's pretty much needed for handling the outliers. The way out is first thing is deletion. The deletion is pretty simple. If you have a data set in which the 10 and 15 are outliers, and in the end the 1550 and 1772 is an outlier for sure because the between data is from 550 to 711. There is no much more variance between the data, but the variation between 711 and 1772 is pretty much high. And so first, what we do is that we arrange any data set in a ascending order or descending order, anything like that, and then we truncate the outliers, truncate the certain set of last numbers. So it will remove. But we are blindly doing it. So in the we hope so that it will remove the outliers, whatever number it presents. So next technique is imputing, attributing an outlier to the mean of the remaining population. It's a good technique. Next thing is treating it separately. If we think that if the outlier is due to the natural cause, like the example what I meant in Bill Gates, so it's not always bad to delete the content, delete the data of Bill Gates and taking only the people who are not having the as much salary as Bill Gates, and we can't do data analytics like that. So when we have a natural outliers, we have to go with this technique, treating separately. What we do here is simple. When we have this technique can be applied when we have a cluster of when we have two different clusters of data points, as like what we have shown in the figure, and we have two clusters. If you fit as such, then there will be more bias in the fitted line. So as you can see that the bottom data is not very well, and the top data is also not has not fitted yet. So it's not a good method to have this methodology to fit a line as such. So let's put that aside. Uh, the next, what we do is that we separate the data set and then we fit the lines separately. We run, for instance, if we are predicting a model through a linear regression, we fit a linear regression line with separately for each and every data set, and it's good to go with this technique because we are not eliminating the natural outliers, which is needed for consideration, which is needed for research. And next technique is transformation. Transformation, for instance, there is an example called as log transformation. The purpose why we use it, I'll explain it. And if you take without a transformation, I've shown the graph for it. I've shown a scatter plot for it. There is a two outlier which is pretty much deviant from the normal data. So when we apply log for the entire y-axis, the data will be shifted into this kind. The here the distribution along the x-axis is same as the previous one, but the across y-axis the outlier is less deviant from the normal data. So it's the best technique out of these four, what I can say. And, this technique is most predominantly used by the data analysts. And next, the last topic of EDA is feature engineering. And the feature engineering involves extracting an important feature from the raw data using the domain knowledge. Say if we all if you are collecting a data, if you don't if I will give an example of when we are measuring a date and sales on that particular day. So the date is not going to help us with any sort of thing. So date is nothing. So it's so what we do is that we tweak the data, we create a new column for that, and we'll measure the day on that particular date. So it's not a difficult thing to do. So we do that first, and then after having that day, a particular day, we can say that if the date, if it is weekend, there is a more amount of sales, and this sort of prediction is acceptable. So that's the reason why I use feature engineering. The first technique is variable creation. We'll have that in the back of the mind, and the next technique is variable transformation. In this, we have multiple techniques. First thing is standardization. We standardize the data. If you have a huge amount of data and vast range of data, say from 0 to 1000, it's always good to have a feature engineering in the middle of in the start of deep learning. So I've came across an example of CNN where we classify images, right? So if we classify an image, that each and every pixel holds a 8-bit data. So the data is between 0 to 255. So pixel value is as a wide range of value. So we can't go use that same data and train the model. So what we do is that we standardize it. We bring the mean to the 0, and we truncate the data to -2 to +2 or -1 to +1. We cut short the range of the data, and we will train the data then. And then the learning will be pretty much faster as compared to the previous usual method. So this is standardization, and next technique is min-max scaler. And min-max scaler is otherwise called as a normalization technique, which converts the data from any range between 0 and 1. It's good to have that. And next technique is a robot scaler. All these sort of techniques is just tweaking the data of any of the particular feature and putting it in a. There is different formulas for a robot scaler, and next technique is log transformation, which you have seen in the previous slide. So it's just taking a log of the feature of each and every record. And next technique is exponential, just taking a exponent of anything of data. And next technique is square and cube root transformation. And last but not least is a binning technique. And before moving on to the binning technique, I wish to say that why do you want to do transformation first of all? First of all, as Saurabh explained, there is a concept called hypothesis testing. So we want to measure whether the collected data and result are statistically significant. It's not about just we have taken the sample from the population of 1,000. We have taken the sample of 100, and we can't say that our result is representative of entire population. We can't do that. So we run hypothesis testing, which we'll be discussing further class, I guess. So in hypothesis testing, one of the most important thing what we assume is that the distribution of the data can't be non-Gaussian. It has to be Gaussian or normal distribution. So if it is a normal distribution, it's pretty much easy for us to say that the percentage of data between the zero the mean and the first standard deviation is 34%. It's good to have that. So it's easy for analysis. So we use this sort of log transformation, exponential transformation, or square root or cube root transformation. We will see that whether the non-Gaussian distribution of our data is getting transformed into a normal distribution, and if it is transformed into a normal distribution, we can predict it with a QQ plot, which is pretty much easy to look for that. It is out of context. And the next technique is binning. The binning is opposite of encoding. In binning, what we do is that if I'll give an example. If a person's age is compared to the whether the person is doing yoga or not. So all sort of ages will do yoga for sure. At least after the International Yoga Day has been announced by India. So the what we do is that we can't use a continuous value of ages as such and go for prediction. What we do is that we categorize um, the continuous value of ages, say middle-aged people or youngsters or old-age people or above old-age group, say 80 plus. So we categorize into 4 or 5 categories, and then we classify based upon whether he's doing yoga or not, whether he's interested in doing yoga or not. So if this sort of classification gives a pretty much good result, and it's also good to even to see this sort of classification is better to have that. And then next technique in that is a variable creation. We create a next variable, a new variable from the existing feature. The example for that is I have already given. So we can't do anything with the date, and we can't compare the date and the sales value. So it's good for nothing. So what we do is that we use the date and we find the day of the particular date, and we use for classification. We sort of creating a new feature out of the feature which already existed. So then I explained why do you want to do that. And it's just the example what I've given. And then the technique to do that is simple. The creating derived variables. This sort of creating derived variable is the example what I've given. We have a certain feature. From that feature, we derive a new variable. And then next technique is creating dummy variable. This is a concept of opposite of binning, just like encoding. Encoding is a technique where we convert a categorical or nominal variable into a numerical variable, because we can't feed in linear regression, say in multiple linear regression, we can't feed a categorical variable into the model. So we shift gears. We transform the data from the category variable into the dummy variable, which is a numerical one. So then we move on. Then, as a recap of what the EDA is all about and what we have discussed in our presentation, the first thing is variable identification, next thing is univariate analysis, then is bivariate analysis, then missing value incubation, and then next topic is outlier treatment, and then last but not least is a feature engineering. All these sort of 6 procedures which you want to take in mind of as a initial data analysis. So we have to do this 6 procedures before we move on to the building a model. So building a model and predicting results is just 30% of our entire journey. So most of the project will have a 70% weightage to the analyzing the data, which is exploring the data. So if we directly move on to the building a model without even knowing what sort of data is that, and if you don't have any knowledge about that, and if we directly move on to the building model, then it will be biased model for sure. We don't even know how to analyze the result for sure, and then if you go and ask the data, just a cracking a joke, just to if you go and ask the data that why my model is not pretty much well, then even after giving it a best fit, the answer the data will reply is that staring in front of our eyes, you know nothing about the data, so you can't justify what the output you got. So this is not a good thing to do. So first procedure is exploratory analysis, and second procedure is building a model. And thank you for bearing with us for a huge time. And thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Literally, man. This was one of the fantastic presentations today we had from both of the teams. Vikrama, if you could stop
Yeah,
sharing
yeah,
your
yeah,
screen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
For me, it was something like I was making notes and then notes and then notes, a lot of notes I itself made. Thank you, team. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Vikrama. Thank you, Prince, and thank you, Tarun. Man, you guys were fantastic, man. You all were amazing. The way you presented each and everything, especially the second team, and the way Vikrama added a lot of things. There were a couple of things that was about to talk, but the way Vikrama presented and couple of things that he added during a presentation as well, that was phenomenal. You guys should be very proud Vikrama is here. And Vikrama, feel free to share your tips and tricks how to you give presentation and all. You did a very fantastic job. Kudos to you. I mean, yeah, we can just सारे टीम्स के लिए एक बार हम क्लैप कर सकते हैं. गुड गुड. Alright guys, so सब सो गए हैं कि यहीं पे हैं? You feel free to turn on your videos. Couple of things I would like to share. Great, great. Alright. So couple of things that I would like to share. First, yeah, definitely Prince and Tarun Kumar. What I would wanted you to share is that during the whenever you are talking about, right, in the last presentation I also talked about, be very specific about the definitions and keywords that you are putting it. Don't too much explain the words over there. Keep it at your back end, probably in your cell phone or somewhere, and then note down the key points over there. During presentation, note down the key points. Secondly, especially for Gaurav, your font size was relatively small. I mean, for me it was very relatively small, but in fact the color design and the way you presented, that was phenomenal. That was very great. But the font size was relatively small, so make sure to work on that as well. Team one, okay. So understand, you know, there are a couple of things that we need to understand here. Right key, like error related to if data types is not right. Okay, fine. Okay, relating to the data science questions, importance of EDI. Yes, so probably someone mentioned, Prince I mentioned, right? It's not extrapolatory, it's extra, I mean exploratory data analysis, right? So किसी ने यदि गलत सुना है तो उसको अपने note down का note के अंदर. And definitely there was a very good example of the ratio data. I forget that concept, but again you reminded me again. I have noted it down. I would like to ask a particular question, especially if Dhrumil is here, because I caught just today. Yeah, Dhrumil, did you get the answer of what is the difference between nominal and ordinal data? Dhrumil, you are still not audible. Probably there is some issue with that. Yeah, anyone would like to go apart from the presenters, those present today? Harsh, Mahesh bhai. So the question is, what is the difference between nominal and ordinal data? Yeah, Prince, if you could mute yourself. Yeah, thanks. Mahesh, you are also not audible. क्या हुआ भाई, सबकी आवाज बंद हो गई, बोलती बंद कर दिए सारे टीम के प्रेजेंटर्स. Okay, Harsh, would you like to say something? Okay, in ratio data we can take negative values. Okay, we cannot take negative values. Okay, fine. What is the difference between nominal and ordinal data? Nominal and
ordinal data is something type of order by their positions on their scales. We put that ordinal data,
okay.
Or in that nominal data, we can say that hair color or gender. We
Okay.
can in the nominal data, yes.
Okay, so very specific. In ordinal data, both comes under the categorical part, but ordinal data is something where you can order the data, but in nominal data you cannot order the data.
Order the data, yes.
Got it. Okay, cool, fine. Okay, second team I would like to introduce. Okay, the way Gaurav you presented, right? The way you introduce yourself, and I really like the way you introduce yourself. You talked about yourself, your previous background, currently whatever things that you're pursuing, and then again you went ahead and did mention your teammate, but did not introduce him completely. So if you are introducing yourself, feel free to introduce your teammate as well. Okay, but you did a good job. I really like the way you introduced. Next time onwards, any team which is presenting, right? Do introduce yourself. Talk about it. कि अब तक क्या किया है? What are your things is that, and what is your next thing that is in your mind? And again, इतना respect देने की जरूरत नहीं है. Gaurav Kumar, the Tarun, the Prince. They are not only one Tarun or one Tarun. It was the Tarun. Okay, fine. Small size, font size is okay. That was okay. Respect not much visible to the audience. Okay, next question is, what is the difference between pie chart and a histogram? Anyone apart from these presenters? Bhavesh, I can see you.
Yes.
Yeah. What is the difference between pie chart and histogram? So तो नहीं है भाई.
नहीं. Pie chart.
Okay.
Pie chart is shown in a circle. So in different sections of circle.
Okay.
And histogram is like a graph.
Okay. Anyone else? Based on the data types, can you tell me the difference? What is the difference between bar chart and a histogram?
Uh, Pie chart can be used for this nominal data,
Okay.
and histogram can be used for this. Histogram can be used for ordinal data.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, see,
Uh,
yeah.
Saurabh,
Yeah, Shivam, please go
I
ahead.
want to add something. If I am correct, maybe pie chart mostly used for categorical data
Okay. What about the
as compared
histogram?
to historical data. The historical data we can also use for interval data mostly. Like we have some interval 140
Mm-hmm.
to 150,
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Okay. Anything? Anyone else would like to try? Yeah, Vikrama.
Uh,
Yeah, please.
Basic difference is histogram can't be used for category data first of all, so it can be used only for continuous data. And if you want to do a univariate analysis, you can do for continuous data. You can do it with histogram, and if you want to do it for category data, you have to go with pie chart.
Okay, that's great. This is exactly I wanted to hear. See, in very simple words, bar chart or a pie graph is used for categorical data. Histograms is used for continuous type of data. All right, it's a very fundamental question that is most of the times asked in your interviews, right? Okay, moving ahead. AM, GM, interval ratio, so fine. I'd like to express my. I don't know, Vikrama. You did invested a lot of money in your earphones, but there were some background noise. So I don't know. Maybe some noise reduction. Just invest in some mic which is having some noise reduction feature. Okay. Okay. Cool. It was not Gora. It was not Chai. It was Kai. Okay. So yeah. So it was Chi. Anyone else? It's not a Chi. It's a Chi test. Z test, T test. Accordingly, and the way we represented, right? Mean and other. That was good. Fantastic. Null hypothesis and all. During this whole process, what we are trying to do is that you see, we are trying to understand ki, okay, how an individual person, for example, how Harshvardhan, how Sumit, how Dhrumil, how Vikrama or Gaurav, how individually they can go ahead, work on a framework, understand and explore things on their own, learn about it, implement it in their own, and then uplift themselves. Right? So during the whole process, I'm not teaching anything to you. The way I'm presenting you, the way I'm guiding you, that you can find a lot of things on a blog or somewhere where every steps is written, right? What you need to understand, what you need to go in. The only variable is you, right? You are not sticking to a particular place, you are not repeating the particular things, you're not making a proper notes, you're not asking the right question, you're not understanding it properly, you're not implementing it, and that's where the catch is, and that's where you need to improve that. So we need to understand that during the through whole this process, what we're trying to do is that in any aspect of our life, what we're trying to understand is that any problem I can work on myself, I can solve in myself. Okay, you're becoming an independent person. IIT में आने के बाद से every person is a lion. So be that lion person. Okay. Cool. Vikrama, font size was fantastic. The way of presentation was great. The aesthetics that you used was very soothing. I like the way the PPT flew and the diagram, and I understand that you invested a lot of time there, and it was good. A bit of noise in the probably from the earphone that I already mentioned. Get a good noise. The binning part was very good. Most of the times, if you people go through those as Amit sir, no, and data mining and knowledge discovery, he'll talk about winning. Probably he can ask the questions and beautifully explain the MAR MCN. In fact, I forgot about. I have taken the notes. And second aspect is that going forward, कैसे हमको पढ़ना कैसे, how we need to study. For example, we talked about, right? It's not about कि हमने एक book पढ़ाई, मतलब we took out a book and read everything out of it. So there is something called, I don't know, it is really a thing or not, but I call it something like that. It's something called black box learning model. Okay, what it is called? Black box learning model. So what we need to do is that, for example, let's say we are talking about this whole data science pipeline, right? So something like there are various modules. For example, data engineering modules, then data collection, then data analysis, some other type of model building and machine learning algorithm, then presentation and deployment, then customer deployment, and then data collection, again market segment, market survey or something like that. So what we need to understand, there are different various modules. First, you need to understand it as a black box. How? You just need to understand what the input is coming, what the output is coming. Just a, overall view of it, just a high level view of it. Okay. then go move to the next form, then move to the next form, then move to the next one. Once you understand the whole pipeline, and then you go ahead and open a particular box, and then explore, dig deeper into it. Then open another particular box, then explore or dig deeper into it. Then open, for example, you started a particular project, right? You understood what is the business model of that, what is the business understanding, what is the business question that problem is asking. Secondly, you went ahead, okay, this is the data I need to collect it. You've collected the data. You understood, you did some EDA, you understand there are a lot of type of DTA, but you did only basics of the EDA. You understood this is the EDA that we need to do. Then you went ahead, applied couple of models, but you don't know what exactly is going behind it. You use the whole pipeline. You try to solve the particular problem by modeling the problem, doing some pre-processing, feature engineering, and then modeling the problem, and then prediction, and then solving the business case studies as a black box. You didn't went ahead very deeper into understanding the mathematics, the null hypothesis, or any assumptions or any mathematics behind it, and the backend code, whatever is going on. Now, once you are comfortable with these things, so once you are comfortable with the whole pipeline, then you go ahead and open a particular box. Okay, let's dig deeper into EDA. Everything. Let's dig deeper into this gradient boosting. Let's dig deeper into decision trees. Let's dig deeper into ensembling methods. So this type of learning, that which is called the black box learning method, this is very I mean, you can learn a lot of things in a very fast track. And this is what I also apply in my daily life. Okay, and that's where you need to understand. All right, so
Hi, Saurabh.
yeah, Bhavish, yeah, please go ahead.
I said, this cleaning the things that Vikrama has explained was the second part of the pipeline, cleaning the data. So the first part, obtaining the data, there was nothing regarding this obtaining the data.
Correct.
So that I think so we missed on that. So I was just curious about it.
Okay, fine. So see, the data is readily available, right? Data आप कैसे collect करोगे? For example, let's say you wanted to take a decision to join a particular IIT, right? So how did you go ahead and collected the data?
So the seniors, LinkedIn, the reviews on Google, Quora,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
placement brochure.
Absolutely.
So
this is it.
okay.
This is how we do. In fact, whenever you talk about, for example, let's talk about a particular product Flipkart is about to build, right? And he wanted to understand what type of data customer is giving as a feedback form. So what will they will float a particular feedback form. They'll collect the data. Okay, so similar way the data is collected. For example, you can also talk about various reviews happens once you log out from your SBI account or maybe some other buying platform, right? Okay. In fact, behavioral analysis is also done. Zomato wala, the person who comes at your doorsteps and get a delivery, he also get a reviews, and that's how they collect the data, right? And they understand, okay, this person has a good rating. Let's give him some incentives accordingly. So data collection, we are not much more focusing. Yes, there will be some part when we need to understand that how to manage the data, how to, I mean, from the data, how to do the database management. You need to understand some fundamentals of database management systems. You need to understand how to extract, how to apply some queries to extract those data to import in your Python modules in order to do some data analysis. So those parts will be covered later. Okay. All right, fine.
Yes,
so
okay.
We have these two teams, and I can see here we have 15 people around. If you have any queries to these two teams, yeah, feel free to ask any couple of queries. सबको सब कुछ समझ में आ गया? Yes, मुझे सब कुछ आ गया. या फिर सेकेंड एस्पेक्ट होता भाई आज इतना ज्यादा हो गया कि मुझे समझ ही में नहीं आ रहा क्या क्या पढ़ लिया मैंने. ये पता नहीं कहाँ से ये सब विक्रमन, रघु, गौरव एंड प्रिंस एंड तरुण, from where the hell these guys came and explained a lot of things. They never prepared any notes. Anyways, so you guys did a fantastic job. So now what I want you to do is that you go back. I will be uploading this recorded session. Revisit this recorded session. Take out time. Identify the keywords. Go ahead and note it down in your notes. Explore the web. Explore the YouTube videos. Explore multiple things. Go ahead and take a lot of notes. So take couple of days. and then after a couple of days during the weekend or Saturday or Sunday, I'll be talking about the next steps that we need to understand. The next step, I'll be talking about the framework from where you need to learn how to register for Coursera, how to get along the certificates, what are the things that matters the most, and how to use basic platforms, Google Colab, Kaggle, the data set, otherwise how to participate in competitions, and couple of more things. For example, I'll talk about couple of courses that about Excel and Power BI and all. Okay, so right now take couple of days rest and try to understand the foundation of it. Those people who are interested, go ahead and understand the statistics of it for you that is used for a data science. Understand this, these things are very important, you know, these assumptions, these hypotheses, alternate hypothesis, null hypothesis, this Z test, T test, ANOVA test, dig deeper into it. Now go ahead. Now you have understood what are the things that are there, dig deeper into it, try to understand it, because exactly these questions are going to ask, the people are going to ask you during the interviews. And if you hang tight with me, right, in a couple of more months, 1 or 2 months, after that you are eligible. In fact, you are more than eligible to get an internship. You do your MTech, along with that get an internship maybe before this winter itself. Do your winter internships, before summer do another internship, in summer do 3-4 internships. Okay, and then probably you get a job before your placements as well. Get a pre-placement offer as well. Okay, so because you are more than ready, you are more than ready. The way I'm seeing, couple of people have prepared it, I can see. So you guys are ready, and then just wait for a couple of I mean in 1 month or so, you will be ready for the couple of projects accordingly. All right guys, so those this would be all for today's session. I hope you guys did add a lot of value to others, and especially for me, it was really a value addition session. You both teams really did a very fantastic job. Okay guys, so bye bye. After that there will be a post hangout session that we did last time. Okay, so let me stop the recording and then we can start with that. All right guys, bye bye, take care.